All right, we record. So, my name is William Everhart, and this is my Psychology 516 Psychology Project for productive and counterproductive behaviors in the workplace environment. We've got 5 questions that I'll be going over and using experiences from my life as well as things in the book to answer and try and evaluate them. Question number 1. How have recent historical events affected the course of research in organizational psychology? Give an example of an event and the resulting outcome. So the first thing that comes to mind isn't so much an actual event so much as it is an ongoing development of social media and social technologies. So we're now more connected to each other than ever. We've got ways to access information on each other, like demographic information that we just put in our bios in social media apps like Facebook and Instagram. But we've also got information that can be used in demographic surveys, like our age, different information that might be asked for, like race. But organizational psychologists can use this information in a variety of ways. And one way that comes to mind immediately is the hiring process. With this sort of information, you'll be able to find the right person for the right job a lot easier than it used to be. So websites like Indeed, LinkedIn, Monster can provide employers with an easier time of hiring. Another fact is that with this ongoing evolution of social media, it encourages scientists and students to join the field of organizational psychology and actually develop it further so that we understand exactly what we're working with. All right, on to question 2. Describe the socialization process for graduate students in your program. Is this program successful in socializing newcomers and creating job embeddedness? So, in terms of job embeddedness, I would definitely say that the psychology program in general, let alone the psychology program for the graduate school here at Liberty, is very good at reinforcing the need or the innate urge to get a job and start a career within the field. Within the organizational psychology program itself, I would probably say that the levels of certifications that were offered or encouraged to apply for and take the tests for are higher than for general psychology. I can't speak for any of the other graduate fields, but they've done a great job of giving us opportunities at the very least. In terms of socialization for the students in the program, when I first started in psychology, I wasn't exactly the most extroverted person. As you can probably tell by the editing in this video, I'm still not. But I feel more comfortable speaking my mind about topics and subjects within the field with others. So I feel that I can more effectively collaborate now. I have one of my current professors whose teaching style is exactly what I needed as somebody who needs to break out of their shell and interact with others. He is rather blunt, but he does get the job done, and he definitely requires the students to think more about how their own perspectives can be applied to the program itself. And if you don't take the subject that you're learning seriously, you're going to find out when the results come back from your nearest exam. Right, on to question 3. How can an organization reduce or prevent work-family conflict? Now, work-family conflict can be a lot of things. It primarily represents itself as a conflict between your responsibilities at work and your responsibilities at home. So a way that some organizations can actually help, at least on the work end of that, is to provide flexible scheduling. So a lot of places these days, at least thanks to COVID, have been doing the choose your own hours kind of employment, and having a schedule that you can alter whenever you need to or in limited capacities can provide a little bit of relief from the stress in the household. Something that I didn't realize was actually a problem before doing my research, though, was that employers are being encouraged, as if it wasn't common sense, to listen to their employees about their needs. And open communication is the key in any relationship, whether it be interpersonal or in a business relationship like employer and employee. Another way that you can reduce stress in the workplace is proper training. If you properly train an employee and make it easier for them to do their job because they actually know what they're doing, then they're less likely to have stress on the job, which will give them more mental resources for being at home. Almost last, positive company culture. You are definitely going to get a lot more positive reactions and responses from employees, and they'll be less stressed if they feel like they're being positively reinforced while they're at work. This could be anything like an encouraging note, a positive review of their work, or just having activities for the employees to do every so often so that they can feel confident and tighter-knit as a community. And last but not least, we have time off for injuries of family members and emergencies. I was pretty surprised doing research that a lot of places, especially fast food locations and restaurant work, are limiting severely what exactly a person can take off to grieve or mourn or take care of their families. So definitely by extending that window, there would be less stress. All right, on to question 4. Imagine you've been asked to develop a performance assessment program for employee development. What techniques could you use to adequately evaluate employee performance as comprehensively as possible? Think of Murphy's List. Now, when I see this kind of prompt, I immediately think of the first 3 rules on Murphy's List. First being, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Nothing's as easy as it looks, and everything takes longer than you think it will. So I'm not entirely sure if the prompt is asking for me to consider those when creating the program or when thinking about how to properly assess an employee. But from a comprehensive standpoint, assessing the performance of an employee takes a lot of factors. You have to consider their commute, what their work-family conflicts are, the actual requirements for the job, and how long they've been working in the position. As we talked about in the previous question, a prepared employee is a productive and relatively well-performing employee. An additional factor that you have to take into consideration is how they interact with other employees. If you're in a business that has direct customer interactions, how they interact with customers, or anybody else that they're working with, whether it be other people in another business. So a technique that I find would be useful is to document information on all these factors if you can. Of course, you'd have to get a disclaimer and let them know that that's what you're doing. But it would definitely help through periodic surveys if you could gather information that would allow you to understand where any possible dips in performance would come from, so that you would know, hey, I'm moving, so I'm a little bit more stressed, or we just had kids, so there's a lot more of a break between the family and the work performance. And if we do things that way, then one bad day or one major life event wouldn't ruin their entire reputation as an employee. So you'd have a bit more of an understanding connection with that employee. All right, last but not least, question 5. What are some possible common organizational constraints and how could they lead to counterproductive behaviors? Right, so there are a lot of ways that counterproductive behaviors can be brought about by organizational constraints. As anybody who's studied even a little bit into IO psychology or just business in general, there are several different constraints that can pop up just about anywhere, regardless of what actual business you're trying to run. First one is unqualified workers with poor performance. If you hire somebody who either lies on their resume or can't produce what they said that they could do on their resume, you're not going to have a worker who produces the right result. And that's going to lose you money, time, and resources. Procedure that isn't optimized. So there are a lot of different procedures and working condition requirements that need to be met in order for a working environment to be optimized. So if you have a procedure that has a couple extra steps that don't really need to be taken into account, you probably should just get rid of them and optimize it. It'll save you time, it'll save you money, and people won't find it nearly as tedious. Supervisory problems. So there are a lot of different ways that having somebody micromanage you could be negative. If you feel like you've always got a pair of eyes staring at the back of your head, you're not going to be able to focus. You won't be able to produce the same quality of work as you could if you were given a little bit more agency as an employee. That being said, a little bit of supervisory help would be good because it allows you to ask for guidance and direction, which leads us into the next one, which is lack of management support. So in contrast to the previous point, if you don't have any direction or guidance or have minimal association with your manager or supervisor, then you're not going to be able to get the job done because you don't have all the details, you don't have the connection, you don't have instruction. So, right, next is lack of funding. It's pretty simple. If you don't have the right funding, then you can't get the right materials and resources into place, and you won't be able to get your project done properly. Client failures. So what I mean by a client failure, I mean a failure on the responsibility of a client. So say that, for example, you're working at a law firm, right? And you're trying to get information from the client, say they have some specific kind of paperwork they're supposed to have, and they just can't find it or don't have it or didn't even know they needed it. Not getting that information is going to cause you some problems in your responsibilities, whatever they may be. Right, lack of staff. There was a brief period that seems to have stretched itself into a rather long length of time, where people were having trouble hiring. I was seeing hiring signs, they're hiring bonuses. What really made me concerned, though, was that there don't seem to be any bonuses for people that stayed throughout the entire pandemic. Multitasking overload. The brain can only handle so many different things going on at the same time. So if you pile too many things of different varieties onto one employee's plate, have them run too many stations in a kitchen, work on too many projects in an office building, or give them too many things that they have to review, then they aren't going to be able to think straight and they aren't going to produce the quality work that you need them to make. Frustration with assignments or others. Now this one is more or less inevitable, but when you put enough people together, they aren't always going to mesh. When they don't mesh properly and they don't get along, tempers might rise. A great way to avoid this is to have consistent meetings to clear the air and get things off people's chests. Lack of professional appreciation. So as the last point, not being appreciated as a professional can definitely depress some employees and make them, well, not feel like what they're doing is worth it. Like they could be getting, more attention or appreciation somewhere else. So by making sure to acknowledge and appreciate all of your employees and what they do for you, you can definitely improve morale and make it less likely that they'll leave to find something else. I hope that you've enjoyed listening to this, despite the editing style. But yeah, my name is William Everhart, and this is my PSYC516 project.